Imagine a rainy week where the power goes out. No lights, no heat, no hot food. Annoying, right? Now take away the house. Take away the car in the driveway, the neighbor you could knock on, the hospital 20 minutes away if something goes wrong. Put yourself in a river valley in Ice Age Europe, 40,000 years ago, in the third week of a rain that has not stopped. Your only clothing is soaked through. The temperature sits just above freezing. Every hour you stay wet is an hour your body is losing a fight it cannot win alone. This isn't a survival show premise. This was Tuesday.
For hundreds of thousands of years. Here's the question almost nobody asks about early humans. Not how did they hunt mammoths? Not how did they survive saber-toothed cats? How did they survive the rain? Because rain, unlike a predator, doesn't attack once and leave. It settles in. It goes on for days, weeks, sometimes an entire season. And unlike a lion, rain doesn't care how brave you are. It just quietly, patiently pulls the heat out of your body until you stop being able to think straight. And then it kills you. Predators are dramatic. Rain is administrative. And for most of human history, the administrative threat was the one that actually got you. So let's get into the mechanics of it, because understanding why rain is dangerous is the first step to understanding how ancient humans beat it. Water pulls heat away from skin far faster than air does. That single fact is the whole ballgame. It means a human doesn't need a blizzard to die of cold. A human needs wet clothes, a light breeze, and a temperature that a modern person would call mild. 10 degrees Celsius, a rainy afternoon in April.
That is a genuinely lethal combination if you're soaked and can't get dry. Early humans weren't fighting off ice. They were fighting off ordinary wet weather over and over for their entire lives. And the fact that our species made it through hundreds of thousands of years of that isn't luck. It's engineering, done without blueprints. Start with fire, because fire is where this story really begins. The instinct is to think of fire as something ancient humans made when they needed it, the way we flick a lighter. That is almost never how it worked. Starting a fire from nothing, with wet wood, wet tinder, and cold hands, is one of the hardest physical tasks a human being can attempt. So ancient groups didn't restart fire. They kept it alive. At Terra Amata, a roughly 400,000-year-old site on the coast of France, archaeologists found hearths inside constructed huts with low stone walls built specifically to block wind from the fire. That is not an accident. That is someone 400 millennia ago engineering a windbreak because they understood exactly what would happen if the flame went out. Across cultures studied by anthropologists worldwide, keeping an ember alive during travel or bad weather was a dedicated task. Someone's entire job for a day or a week was fire. Not hunting, not gathering, sitting with the coals and making sure the group didn't wake up in the dark, in the cold, with nothing to relight it with. But you can't protect a fire with nothing over your head, which is the second piece of this. The image of the caveman is mostly wrong, and it's wrong because of preservation bias. Caves survive in the archaeological record. Huts built from branches and hide mostly don't. So we look where the evidence is easy to find and conclude that's where everyone lived. But the shelters we do have evidence for are shockingly deliberate. Those Terra Amata huts were built from saplings, bent and anchored into an oval frame, with skins or leaves layered over the top to shed water, roughly a fireplace's throw from the doorway, so smoke could escape and rain couldn't get in. Later structures, like the mammoth bone dwellings found across Eastern Europe, take the same idea further. Heavy bones staked into frozen ground to resist wind, hides stretched taut across the top.
These are not holes to hide in during a storm. They are built environments, designed the same way a modern tent or roof is designed, to keep one specific enemy, water, on the outside. And then there's the material that made all of this actually livable in sustained wet weather. Hide turned into something closer to leather. This is worth sitting with because it's a genuinely underrated cognitive leap. At Contrebandier's cave in Morocco, researchers found dozens of specialized bone tools dated to somewhere between 90,000 and 120,000 years old, purpose-built for scraping hides clean and preparing pelts. That means humans were already running a multi-day production process. Kill an animal, scrape the skin, work fat or brain matter into it to make it flexible and water-resistant, and only then wear it, weeks after the animal was alive. That's not a reflex. That's forward planning across a delayed timeline, solving a problem, staying dry in a storm 3 weeks from now that doesn't exist yet. Rain didn't just threaten early humans. It appears to have pushed their problem-solving forward.
None of this worked in isolation, and that's the part that gets skipped most often. Ancient humans survived sustained rain as groups, not individuals. Body heat shared under one shelter is a real, measurable survival advantage, and sleeping arrangements in cold, wet conditions were dense and communal for exactly that reason. There was almost always an informal division of labor in bad weather. Someone tending fire, someone reading the sky and the terrain for the next safe place to wait it out, older members making the calls on when to move based on things they'd seen before.
That knowledge, which slope drains fastest, which canopy actually blocks rain, which valley floods first, was passed down, not rediscovered each generation. Losing an elder in a hunter-gatherer group didn't just mean losing a person. It meant losing a working memory of exactly how this specific landscape behaved in weather like this. That is very likely one of the real, practical reasons caring for older group members shows up so early in the human story. It wasn't sentiment. It was infrastructure.
Food didn't stop being a problem just because it was raining either. Sustained wet weather actually made animals harder to track and scattered normal plant foods under water or under mud. So early humans adapted the menu instead of starving through it. Earthworms surfaced by the thousands after heavy rain. Freshwater fish move predictably during flooding. Certain fungi fruit specifically because of the moisture. Add in deliberate caches of dried meat and stored food, evidence for which goes back deep into the prehistoric record, and you get a group that wasn't hoping to outlast the rain. It was prepared to outlast it.
Put it all together, and the picture that emerges isn't a species barely scraping by. It's a species that treated a slow, boring, relentless threat with the same seriousness modern engineers treat structural load, and solved it with fire discipline, architecture, waterproof material science, environmental literacy, and cooperation, thousands of years before any of those words existed. We survived the rain not because we got lucky enough times in a row, but because somewhere back in that wet, cold dark, our ancestors decided that giving up wasn't an option, and then quietly figured out everything else.